reflective coating applied to it.
Phone you're used. Now what we also have to take into
Same thing on the other side. We've got our beautiful, you're really putting more weight on the end of the camera, which is going to make your hands.
we won't end up with any pieces that are too small. Still gonna work.
Use of a teleprompter. Some of you may be surprised to learn that because in my first videos I was awkward. It should center the weight so it's all much easier. Memorize lines forever. The supplies you'll need to build this are actually very simple. We've got video that has a lot to say. It can really save a lot of time so you don't have to just sit and
Nice.
there you go.
So obviously we're gonna cut.
Snaps pretty clean. So in theory, this now 45-degree angle. Here is where we're going to want our piece of acrylic film through the back, stays in place.
Count is how far apart we want these, and again that depends on. This is actually deceptively simple, but there are some few basic things that you
Thing that we might want to do, we can see how nicely it fits
to catch the side of the box of the teleprompter itself. So now to know
speaker that I can now take the acrylic, put it over the edge of our bench here, just cutting a 4-inch wide strip of acrylic, kind of like we did with our pieces of foam core.
we will not see that in movies, but a really easy example. Cut these down to size.
Evil Galactic Empire. Nice. Pretty much any hot glue gun is going to work. And then we also have foam.
That out. The other box will show you what YouTube thinks you should be watching. You cut towards the piece that isn't going to matter.
And the last thing that we want to add on is a little bit of support. You're going to see them on the sides, and you're not trying to record this. You just, professional grade teleprompter, they have a few ways to get around this. One is by using a piece of glass through it. You cut a deep enough line that it's slightly weak, the width that the teleprompter text runs at, and we want to encase it, and they're too far forward. Then
Hit really fast. Well, you've got to memorize.
some questions about his design and invention process. So into my camera, so I need to cut a knot.
Really, really pretty. Make sure that you're cutting inwards. You don't want to ever
Acrylic on the sides so we can
talk to you then.
advantages, but this is definitely going to work. Every phone's going to be different. Here is the camera that our cameraman Mark usually uses. He's currently using our emergency, and I want it to. Aha! I measured correctly. That's actually quite snug. Just scrolled right up there. One side of the acrylic, and then they're reflecting off of the back of the same side of the acrylic. So you do get a slight, and on the other end, it doesn't need to.
More. Don't melt your foam.
See? Thanks to my friend Brigham for doubled ghosting effect. This there's a nice title credit. Your turn. As our acrylic has two sides that are reflecting. It's not a very thick sheet of together. There's one more step we want to take. Every situation, if you're acting on stage or screen, something like that, then you can't be looking right at guys.
His palms are sweaty, arms are.
But it costs quite a bit if you're just going to be using it occasionally.
Hey guys, that's all for today, but you know we've always got more.
It isn't going to bounce light off the acrylic. What it looks like through the teleprompter, and you can see, so if it does try, but some of the light is the camera, which is where the cues are usually going to be scrolling. But for anything where you're really tired, and so we have to build onto this demonstration right here about how. All right, how did I do? Nice. Re-angle guide. The other things you're going to need are a camera to film with and a smartphone to run, extend all the way to the end of the phone screen either. So we're just going to cut it off right about that width. And so we want this side to get in a little bit closer, but right now it's bumpy. Teleprompters aren't for razor blade. Very useful because if it starts to get too dull, you can just break the tip off and keep using the rest of it. Before we attach the back, however, we need the lens of the camera will be about right here. We are over here, so we're going to be able to see what's on the phone screen as it bounces. Staring straight at this is going to be the basic idea here is we're just going to have a slit, a rectangular hole cut. The acrylic is reflective, but not as much as a mirror.
There you go. And you normally
like scoring and breaking acrylic. You don't slice all the way. Camera rarely blinking or interacting with my surroundings. It was a struggle for a while. I like to think
things is the angle of your acrylic to make sure that everything is actually.
I'm gonna give it a shot. A long time ago, and as you can see, it's not falling out like that. Like this. And before we start gluing all of the pieces to above the top of the reflecting screen, so let's either straight through the acrylic or bounce off the 45-degree angle out towards us. and it will usually be a little bit thinner, and it will have a special today. It's a bit more sturdy than what we are going to build today. Onto the screen of the phone, and then this line, when we can mark. Ghosting effect. Have this back attached to the lens of the camera and not into this, that our phone fits in a little bit of support on this one direction. But it's down through there, and I mean, I haven't even cut 1/4 of the way through, but it's enough.
If you hit that box at the top, it will take you directly to our last video. You should check. So now we want to challenge each other. So the plan...
And I'm simulating it by just giving myself blinders at the moment. So light you can throw together, and if you have decently large text, it's not a big distraction.
Really? I'm going to put something on the teleprompter for the other person and not tell them what it's gonna be.
It's a really cool version. Guys, if you... Pencil, it's good for marking things. And this piece of paper, which we're actually just have gotten better and don't need to do that anymore. However, we are going to show you how to. That will let you read out a script while you're looking. Foam, this stuff comes from Hobby Lobby, costs about $1.50. This is the thickest stuff they have.
Actually flawless. One of those...
And readily available version of what we're built fit just right. So I'm actually to cut out a small slot, the same thickness as our acrylic sheet. Ending up with
longer, but acrylic is very easy to cut, very easy to handle. So
and it's cheap.
For you to see,
In Base have won their first victory against the box itself is actually quite. I don't know what it is I'm about to read.
yeah.
Unfortunately, acrylic over time will get scratches and dust. Aren't going to be using this DIY version. If it's something you think you're going to use a lot every day, or
Yeah.
we don't really need any height up. Found it. Oh, there's our.
What he wrote down, the whole crowd goes so loud. I think we can do this.
Coming off of our phone, the text that's
That unless you have a teleprompter.
galaxy far, far away. It is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden will be shining up this direction. This is actually an interesting, so it doesn't do that. So that we don't get any vignetting, any lightweight. Once I add the phone, the camera isn't going to see any of that light. The phone
Opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted. One moment. Would you capture it or just let it slip? Core and foam is...
You can see everything that the camera size of the foam, not just the lens, but the foam itself. That's what's going to be glued to this piece of foam core. The first piece that we're going to want to cut out of these, that's actually going to be part of the bar. 2 pieces that hold the phone. However, with my particular phone, I have the Oscar. We went ahead and we have a hot glue gun.
Ring that bell and we'll see you in the next one. These to make it
Just through the foam, we're going to be using our craft
lining up correctly. The other thing that you really need to take into account is the vignette.
camera that sticks out. It's not quite flush with the rest of the phone body. That's when there's something on the sides that's showing up on screen. Now fits into the slot we just cut. So we want just a little bit of extra and glue that into a circle that fits right around. Talked about how we wanted to avoid vignette.
It's a large enough size that we can cut it down to what we need, but what size of acrylic we need, we're gonna measure the cuts we've already made.
What we're gonna do is we're just gonna have a piece that extends off of the bottom. We can drop a smartphone into and use the built-in camera on that. It's gonna do the same thing. Filming out here. This is where the person being filmed is.
And smartphone. So guys, a lot of YouTubers and
Backup camera, so we
looks good.
plastic, but the letter foam as a collar that fits around the lens, because that way it won't just be one ring around what it looks like from the other side through the camera. There's our cameraman. Look.
Next. And if you hit that bomb in the middle, you'll be subscribed to our channel so
Wife.
you're ever cutting matte for something that needs to look
For lots and lots of videos, it's probably worth investing in a professional grade version itself, maybe vlogging or showing a DIY video. Actually invented the Parrot teleprompter, and I asked him, however, works pretty well for a cheap version, the 45-degree angle lines, and now we need sharing your experiences and what you learned as you were designing and inventing this thing. Back piece.
There you go.
Now we want to trace out the same shape, the size
Heavy. There's
on
vomit
the lens, but actually a bit more of a collar.
on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti. He's nervous, but on the
5 millimeters above the height of the phone screen.
could use a glass screen. It would last a little
You're
bit.
there, and then you snap it over the corner of something sharp. All right, I've run several cut. Phone screen is down here, pointing up. Piece of paper folded across. Or this is the stuff that's paper on the outsides and like a styrofoam middle. We've got a clicking adjusted as necessary. It's going to hit the acrylic pane, and at a 45-degree angle, it's going to bounce off. Try and tip it all. Its leverage is pushing up against the bottom of the camera off of the foam core. We're going to have it stop right here, a little bit above the height of the thing nicely, and that's going to hold it in place and just gently.
In a situation like this, less is
height. Phone screen blocking of the visual. We're also going to cut out just a little bit of a.
Incredibly useful. They make it really easy. If you have a lot of bullet points, you've got
to add something else. Today we're going to show you how to build a DIY teleprompter right at the camera. On it, unlike glass, but it is a lot easier to cut. To try and minimize any accidental encroaching on the sides.
The surface, he looks calm and ready to drop bombs, but he keeps on forgetting.
We've got a sheet of crap right over that lens and modified one of our teleprompter builds, and now we just have this nice little thing that diagonally should give us a perfect
cut outwards towards the map that you're going to be keeping. You might end up with like a score mark in mind when you're building one that you don't want. In this case, it doesn't really matter, but for future reference.
How exactly a teleprompter?
So if you have the tools for
body of the teleprompter is going to be so that it reflects the words nicely, but you can still see through it and you don't get that.
So a tip for you, if
you're going to set that right, let's measure for the back.
Example, turn on your camera phone and just put your hand to the side, you'll see it. Here is we are both
trying to just focus on the camera. It's not Grant's. We could know what we were getting into. And remember, this is where we.
So even if it isn't a perfect, very nice.
Some of it is going to go right through the acrylic, and it's just gonna keep going that direction.
Give you Star Wars, you give me Eminem.
That song won enough pieces that hold our phone. All right, I gotta think of something good.
Look, if you had one shot, one op.
Because see, let's measure to put a roof on it.
Holds our acrylic piece in place
so that it all works smoothly.
So to start off, we're just going to cut some 4-inch strips of our foam core.
Tired if you're holding the camera, so we just want to add a sheet of acrylic. This is an 8x10 sheet. I only do everything we want to in terms of keeping our hardware where we need it. You get a little bit heavier, and it can start to droop a little bit. And aside from that, you could get something a little bit thinner, but I like it with the thicker version.
And then see how it looks.
Now, while she does that, I want to talk a little bit about. Picked up at the hardware store for like less than $4. Believe it or not, almost everything that we've said on this channel has been without these up this way. But because of the angle, so we'll start by. Very nice. Now,
you really want to keep in yet. You don't want your camera lens
going to fold and use as a 45-degree.
Like we can help you make a teleprompter that will fit to your camera. Really nice part about working with foam.
Build a teleprompter because they can be very useful.
Here's the basic idea, using foam.
Curve shape into these more as well. The app, however, is free, so that's what we're going to be rather than the DIY. It's got some.
It's usually pretty forgiving.
Holding stuff. So to make sure we have the lines drawn on the teleprompter app. This app that I'm using is the Parrot teleprompter app. The Parrot, a lot of cameras are going to be different. You can see this right here. We're going to want to build this custom to our camera and our phone.
You never miss out on the fun. Don't forget.
So I'm just lining, and we'll then chop it down to the right width after. Cutting acrylic is more, you can see his primary camera prompter works. So our camera will be filming this direction. So we'll have the.
But the next step is going to be to cut some 45-degree angle slits into the side. That's going to be
about what we were seeing in that lens. You may have noticed that if you're using a. So you're going to cut that notch out as well. And I'll show you why. So you can see here, here's a 1.5-inch strip of our craft foam. Now we're just going to measure around the lens. Piece of paper, and I'm just.
Good one, you are.
If these are on the edge of the lens, being written on it is going to bounce up.
And a lot of people on TV use teleprompters. They're in perfection.
Want it to be their phone, we can see that.
So the design itself.
Using with our DIY version. Before we started this build, I reached out to a friend of mine named Brigham, mark right there, and then cut both of these posts off of that. teleprompter box is mostly built. There's one more on longer than they needed to be. We don't need to have this extend all the way down. It's up against the base of the camera. So like we've got the letter is slightly doubled. It's like there's a shadow behind the letters. And that's because it's a pretty good thing. I'm gonna trim this. I'm gonna give myself too much space here. It's not gonna be this tall. This is just, but in just the right spots, in just the right.
Pour hot glue and a sheet of acrylic. And if you know how to cut glass, you
right amounts this direction. That just doesn't happen. It's only going to go, these are reflecting off of one here and all of the light from the phone. Teleprompter is a commercial
circle.
Moving on, and now we need to build another one exactly like that. Got it.